Hi, welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Zac Hill, here with Pro Tour Avacyn Restored champion, Alexander Hayne. Now, Alex, we're looking at a Rug Delver deck right here.
Yeah.
Fairly straightforward list. How'd you decide that this is what you wanted to play at the tournament today?
Well, from the Modern I played, I didn't really think there's any way you can break the format at the moment.
Oh, yeah?
And just wanted to play something solid that I was comfortable with and had game against everything.
Sure.
And I find this is a deck that I've had experience with playing this deck and deck similar to it, and it's just a very solid deck.
Sure, you don't think you have a lot of bad matchups? You think you can basically handle anything?
I think you can definitely handle anything. I mean, there's a little bit of metagaming, say, with the sideboard, and
sure.
But most of the matchups I feel comfortable playing against.
Cool. So for people that are unfamiliar with the deck, let's just sort of walk through what it does.
Sure.
In terms of threats, you've got 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 4 Tarmogoyf, and a Vendilion Clique also on top of all that. This is sort of the core of the deck. Can you kind of explain how it works and why it's so powerful?
Well, I mean, I don't think people who've been playing Magic lately will be unfamiliar with Secrets. But in a deck, blue aggressive deck with a bunch of tons of instants and sorceries, it'll flip fairly early, and you get your clock on, and then you usually protect it with counter spells. That's the main purpose of this deck. It's a pretty standard aggro control deck.
Sure.
You want to get a clock, plus you have disruption. And you can also play both aggressive and controller's route. Tarmogoyf's just a big guy. It's a secret blue card. And Snapcaster, of course, and Snapcaster Delver, best buds.
Yeah, naturally. They're even wizards. So,
Yeah,
they tell you to play them together.
Exactly. And Vendilion Clique is also just very good with this type of strategy, because you don't really ever have to tap out, and you can see their hand, what's going on, and get rid of something. There's also the Grim Lavamancer.
Oh, yeah.
Which is Lucas's addition from after he got second at GP Columbus with the deck. He wanted to play that with the increase of the Birthing Pod decks to kill off mana accelerants particularly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you just dump between the sack lands and the cantrips, you can load up your graveyard and just kind of take out a mana accelerant every turn.
Yeah.
Sure. So you were talking about how you want to deploy a threat and then start countering a lot of their spells. I'm taking a look at your counter magic. You've got 2 copies of Spell Pierce, 2 Deprive, 3 Mana Leak, 2 Spell Snare, 2 Cryptic Command. Now, that's kind of an eclectic assortment of counters. How did you arrive at that mix?
Well, basically the mix makes it harder for them to play around any particular card. You can't play so many counter spells. Like, you can't play 4 Cryptics because they're too expensive, even though they're obviously, when you have 4 mana, it's the best one.
Right.
And you don't want to play too many Deprives because it sets you back. And but you want to have a hard counter, so you don't want to just play all mana leaks.
Oh, okay.
And this is what Lucas had come up with for Columbus, and I think based upon what Antonio da Rosa played in Turin, I believe.
Yeah.
And it just works very well. You have the mix, and it's very hard for them to play around different stuff. I had a match where my opponent was playing spells, playing around Spell Pierce, and I'd Spell Snare him, and then he would play around Spell Snare, and I'd Spell Pierce him, and stuff. And, it just makes it hard. You're very unpredictable, and with Snapcaster, having a mix of different spells that you have access to in your graveyard is an advantage, because then you can choose whichever one's best for the moment.
Right, so, and you know what your plan is, but they don't, so
exactly.
You can exploit that information difference. Now, you're talking about filling up your graveyard. I notice standard staple Thought Scour, one of the cards there to just sort of machine gun through your deck. Also, it's 3 Serum Visions and a single Gitaxian Probe. Is this more just diversity for Snapcaster Mage, or is there a method to the madness?
A little bit. This is probably the worst card in the deck. It's
really?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly no Preordain or Ponder. With all the fetch lands, you're often shuffling back the cards you put on the bottom later, anyways.
Oh, okay.
It's really kind of a necessary evil just to set up Delvers. This slot used to be Sleight of Hand, but there's one less Vendilion Clique for the Grim Lavamancer, so you often want to see their hand to know what's up, so you can know if you can deploy another thread or if you need to keep back on counter magic.
Right.
Also, it allows Snapcaster to come down turn 2, draw your card.
Just go ahead and start gaining advantage.
Right, and Thought Scour might be better cantrip because it feeds Snapcaster and it lets you play Snapcaster end of turn for some value. But it also grows your Tarmogoyfs.
Right.
Often surprisingly so, they're not expecting in combat.
Yeah, you can play it kind of like a giant growth, right?
Yeah, or if they use the Relic of Progenitus, you can suddenly refill. And it's very good.
That's slick. So the kind of linchpin, obviously, you've got one Vapor Snag to kind of mise with too.
Yeah.
What seems to sort of cement the late game are these two Vedalken Shackles that can serve as your creature control along with Lavamancer, Lightning Bolt, and Electrolyze, which I'll get to in a minute. How important is Vedalken Shackles to this deck's plan?
It's pretty important. It's one of your biggest late game threats. Like when you're taking the control role, it's one of your main ways to win. Just after trading 1-for-1 with them, and then you have a Shackles and you stabilize. And against Affinity, it's your only way really to answer Etch Champion.
Oh, okay. Oh, because it doesn't have a color.
Right, exactly.
That's really cool. So my favorite card in the list, I've got to say, is the Miser's Electrolyze.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if I put it in a deck, it would be because I just want to feel good when I get them.
Oh, yeah.
Presumably you just have a better reason than that. Why Electrolyze specifically as the 5th burn spell?
I mean, again, there's lots of mana dorks around in the format.
Okay.
And sometimes there's also decks that don't really care about a removal spell.
Sure.
So you want to just be able to go to the face and draw a card.
Right.
And obviously you can get them, but again, it just gives you more options with a bunch of card draw and Thought Scours and Snapcasters. It's always good to have options, and other people are playing some people are playing Burst Lightning and stuff, but I try the Electrolyze and I like it a lot. It's also definitely one of the most fun cards you can play.
I approve of the choice. Well, cool. So that takes us through the spells. We're looking at the mana base. You've obviously got Misty Rainforest, Arid Mesa, Scalding Tarn to go into Breeding Pools, Steam Vents, Stomping Ground. We see that in Modern a lot. It's kind of the core of the format. 6 islands, Mountain Forest. I am intrigued, with Vedalken Shackles in the deck, it does seem like you have 3 non-island lands. Does that ever pose a problem, or because you have so many islands, you can kind of afford to?
Right, you have a lot of islands, and of course your fetch lands can all find islands. So you generally have enough islands. You don't have to steal that many big creatures often. And Shackles, since you only have 2, usually it comes down later when you have, say, 5 mana. You'll play it and use it right away, and so you'll usually have enough lands. It's important to have basics that you can fetch, first of all, so you don't take too much damage against the aggressive decks, but also against cards such as Blood Moon or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you definitely want that forest to be able to still cast your Tarmogoyfs and not have them stranded in your hand. All right, so now let's take a look at the sideboard. Much like the main deck, we've got a lot of sort of eclectic 1 and 2 ofs.
Right.
We've got cards, obviously, you see all the time. Ancient Grudge for the Affinity matchup, sometimes against Tron, just anything with artifacts, you're probably boarding it in. Hey, explain the Combusts to me. Is that directed at a specific card?
It's especially mainly against Splinter Twin combo.
Okay.
So with Deceiver Exarchs and Pestermites, when they Kiki-Jiki or Splinter Twin them up. Also, the pod decks tend to play Restoration Angels and often Deceiver Exarch now too to combo with Kiki-Jiki. It's not bad against those, and it's good against the blue-white Angel decks like Tsuching Quo played at World Magic Cup, and also against the blue-red-white versions of Delver, you can kill Delvers and Step Lynxes if you need to. So it's just all around fairly good against blue and white creatures. But it's mainly when people are trying to combo off and do something unfair. And
cool.
They're backing it up with counter magic or something, and you just want to stop.
Awesome. Well, continuing the kind of the standard card explosion off of Snapcaster and Delver, we've got another pillar of the standard format here with Huntmaster of the Fells. What is this guy good against, and why do you want 3 copies of it?
He's good against the aggressive decks and like the mid-range decks.
Sure.
Say Jund, for instance, or he's solid in the mirror match against blue-red-white Delver as well. Just the fact he gives you some life and multiple bodies for 1 card is good, and he provides a threat that basically they need to have multiple cards to deal with, and sort of pulls you back in when you're trying to play the more controlling role.
Yeah, sure. All right, so we've got negates. These kind of complement the spell pierces. Can't really play around them. Right. Got Firespout to sweep the board. I'm assuming Grafdigger's Cage is against Storm and Birthing Pod.
Yeah.
Prevent the graveyard. The Surgical Extraction, and another Miser's one-of as you're chaining through your deck. And I guess Pithing Needle for what? More Birthing Pod or something else?
Yeah, Pod. It's good against Karn or Eye of Ujin.
Sure.
Especially since normally this deck plays like 3 Sowing Salts, for instance, against the Tron matchup, which is hard. And I've kind of given up that matchup a bit because I don't expect it to be played very much
Really?
in the tournament.
Okay.
But Needle's just good against them, and it's just also has a variety of roles. It can go in against something I don't expect. I can
Of course.
board it in. Say if someone's playing like Gideon, for instance. But you can name Birthing Pod or Karn or even Deceiver Exarch against Splinter Twin, because then if they have a Splinter Twin.
Oh, right. It counters
or
the
Kiki Jiki or
granted activated ability.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. And finally, a card that we talked about before you came on camera, again, probably my favorite card in the entire 75, if it's not Electrolyze, the singleton copy of Threads of Disloyalty.
Right.
Why, you can't tutor for it, you can't get it back with Snapcaster Mage. Why did we decide to go with that?
Well, so if you Thought Scour yourself, you can get an enchantment in the graveyard for but it's,
Genius.
It's really
high-level magic.
Obviously, it's mainly to steal opposing Tarmogoyfs,
Uh-huh.
but also can steal Spell Skites and other powerful 2-drops like maybe Dark Confident. But you don't want to play too many, because then they can change their strategy against and react to that and board other 2-drops. Whereas if they board other 2-drops, then your deck is just their deck is worse, and you have one dead card, but which is the most you're going to have. Whereas it's just very good when you do draw it,
Cool.
like many of the misers.
All right, well, that takes us through the deck. Pro Tour Avison Restored Champion Alexander Hayne representing Canada. This really awesome looking Rug Delver deck. Good luck at the tournament.
Thank you.
I'm Zac Hill. We're here at the Tournament Center for the Magic Players Championship. We've got a lot of Magic to watch, so stay tuned.